And that right there is why we have Scope Glint in the first place. It's all because of the one-shot kill. Alright, cool. Scope up. And then I'm going to go all the way back, and you're going to keep looking at me. Alright, cool. Now I want you to unscope. And I want you to scope. And I want you to look to your right. I want you to look back at me. I want you to look to your left. I want you to look back at me. You just keep looking straight ahead, but don't follow me. Just look straight ahead where I last was. I want you to watch me the entire time I'm going back, okay? Alright, perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my position over here. Alright, I want you to keep looking at me. Now what I want you to do is I want you to turn to your left and look away from me. Alright, good. I want you to look back at me. And I want you to look to your right and look away from me. Perfect. Okay. Now I want you to look at me without your scope. Now I want you to scope. Unscope. Scope. Okay. Now I'm going to come towards you. So before we could really understand Scope Glint in games and why it's there, we have to understand where it came from. And the general idea here is the reason why you have Scope Glint is because you're giving players a one-shot kill. And if a player has a one-shot kill, they have to have something to give the victim a counterplay. Something that the person being shot at has a chance to react to. Otherwise, it's just not fun. It's really not. Now, the second thing is, even if you don't have a one-shot kill, if you have players off at a distance, massive distances, they're just never going to be able to be seen. They're camping. You can call it sniping, you can call it whatever you want. It's camping, it's bad gameplay. You have to have a way to find them and kill them, because it keeps the gameplay going. If they're going to just sit out there and do whatever the heck they want, matches or anything, not even just matches, any type of gameplay is going to be slow and boring, but not slow in a fun way, but slow and boring and monotonous. Just, it's awful. But Battlefield 3 was the first one to introduce this, in my experience. And I've got it on the screen here. You can pause it, read through it if you want. This is from the Battlefield Wiki. Battlefield 4 continued this, but interestingly enough, Battlefield 4 had a view range where it was visible, so it wasn't as pronounced. Star Citizen currently has this, as you're going to see in my videos with the demonstrations. So Battlefield 1 made a lot of different changes, and the biggest one really is it has like this rainbow effect in the sweet spot range. And this is not about Battlefield, but you can see here, even in this picture, it's the same thing, right? You can see the glint. You can see the glint with a rainbow effect on it. So the glint's always present. And you might say to yourself, oh, well, that's not as pronounced as Star Citizen. Look at the way this is being demonstrated. This is in a very high contrast, open environment, okay? You can see everything. It's very bright in general, so it's not really sticking out. In Star Citizen, people who are taking these videos and are making these pictures, including mine, they're doing it at nighttime, or they're doing it in space. I'm doing it in space, all right? But if you do this at night, it's going to stick out more. I don't care about realism. This is not about realism. This is about gameplay. Now, the final and most interesting one that I want to talk about here is the spotting scope that Battlefield 5 introduced. So the spotting scope is going to allow players who want to do reconnaissance to do recon and not be punished, because they're not trying to one-shot kill. They're trying to scout people out. I think there's a way that you could roll this into one, and I think a spotting scope should be in Star Citizen. And the way I would do it personally is I would attach the spotting scope to like a, what is it called? Like a 4x or something. And I would keep it anything under the glint. So I think 8x and above is glint in Star Citizen. So a 4x, for example, would have the spotting scope trait, and it would allow you to maybe mark the target or highlight the target for players, something like that. Or if you don't want to give them that kind of power, then you just make it its own separate thing. But I would really emphasize the spotting element of the game. Like, imagine if you're playing as a recon player and you're looking at somebody out there and you're trying to shoot them, and then you scope in on them, and it highlights the player. And boom, they're highlighted. And now your people, your party can see that, people on your team can see that. I think that's pretty cool for a sniper, for a quote-unquote recon player. That's way better than one-shots, and I think it's way more fulfilling, and I think more players would like that. So, CIG, if you do listen to this, I would definitely look at the spotting scope option here. The next thing to really talk about here is what happens in games that don't have scope glint or have ways for players to get around it. Let's take a real quick look at this article. This is from, I guess, Call of Duty. I don't play Call of Duty. I haven't played a Call of Duty game since Modern Warfare 2, or Black Ops 1, but that's not the point. The point is here that I guess players got around this in Warzone, and it caused a bunch of problems. Enough problems to have an article written about it, and for people to take to the Twitterverse and complain about it. So, Twitter's not exactly the most common, place for intelligent conversation, but you can see here a lot of players don't like this. People understand, right? People who play snipers ruin games. They absolutely ruin games. And you have to understand that. When a player has the option to one-shot, or the ability, rather, to one-shot another player with no recourse, it creates god-awful gameplay. Smart people recognize it. I don't think any of these people are smart, right? They're Call of Duty players. They're pretty dumb. But the effect is the same. Zach said that sniping at jump down created degenerate gameplay. Now, he doesn't mean degenerate like, oh, you're a bad person degenerate. What he means by that is from a game dev point of view. It's degenerating the gameplay. It's degenerating the experience and the integrity of the product. Well, I'm going to call you a degenerate in that you're a piece of trash, right? You're bad. You're garbage. You're terrible. You're human garbage, all right? I'm going to call you those names. Because if you think that one-shot kill snipers are good for a game, you are a degenerate. Not the way Zach said, but the way I'm saying it, all right? You're scum, and you're bad. That's the only reason why you want to play a sniper. But I'm not going to lump those recon boys in there that want to do the reconnaissance, and that's why I talked about the scope glint. So, that's it for this video. I think there's a lot of disingenuous attempts to control the narrative out there, with people trying to spin a picture, create a picture that scope glint is this awful thing that's ruining the game. Well, I said it before and I'll say it again. If it was up to me, I'd be able to see snipers from friggin' orbit so I could drop an A2 bomb on you from 8,000 plus meters up. Hit me up in the comments. Let's have a fight.